Hello. I'm back. I'm here again. This is like, I think it's a week since I started doing these lives. Hello. I am wearing my healing top today, just for this live and some of the stuff I've been doing. Just to pick up on the general vibe of what I'm going to be talking about. So today is World Suicide Prevention Day, apparently. The whole month is Suicide Awareness Month, as far as I'm aware. And I wanted to dedicate the day to it. I'm going to share in this live a little bit about my own experiences with suicide. And also I'm going to be sharing some stuff about how we get so wrong in society, about how we deal with suicide from the perspective of a suicide survivor. And I'm going to be sharing some stuff. So after I've done this live, I've got a couple little tweaks to finish up. I'm going to be, I've got another post I'm going to do, which I'll be sharing afterwards. And I am going to be sharing a course I've created about suicide, natural recovery from suicide, which is going to be suitable for anybody who is either struggling with suicidal thoughts, in the midst of suicidal ideation, or who is recovering from suicide attempt. And some of my ideas about suicide are probably, like most of my ideas, considered controversial. They're very, very different to the mainstream narrative, and they're based on my real experiences, like how challenging and difficult it is or was to address my suicidal thoughts. And yeah, that's what this live is about. So if it's going to be triggering for you and you can't cope with it, don't watch it. If you're not ready to hear a real perspective from a real survivor, don't listen. But if you are ready to engage in this real conversation, really look at some of the issues around suicide and how it feels to be suicidal and how we can do better in society when dealing with suicide and speaking with people about suicide and trying to support people through suicide, watch. So yeah, just if anyone is watching, I can see some people are watching, so hello. I can't see who you are, right? All I see is this little eye that says, with a number that says who is watching. I don't know the technical side of all that on Facebook, so I can't see you. The comments do come up. If you want to comment, that's absolutely fine, but I tend to channel, so what I do is I just take my information and just come straight out of my mouth. If I start to look at and respond to comments, it can kind of shift that energy a little bit. So I'm happy to accept comments, but just be aware that it can be a bit challenging for us if you really want to engage that way. I'm more likely to engage on comments afterwards, because then I can be reading instead of speaking, and it'll be a lot easier for me, especially if you've got questions. Just ask questions, like genuinely, if you've got questions and you want to be able to better support people with suicide recovery, or if you yourself are struggling with this, like I say, you can do the course that I'll be publishing afterwards, or message me. This is not an offer of therapy. It's not even an offer of support necessarily. It's an offer of solidarity, and I can answer specific questions, and I will likely signpost and guide you towards that course, which is why I've created it. So where to start? Should we start with my personal experience? I've shared a bit in the description, which was when I reflect back, considering the three main reasons why I attempted suicide. I've actually attempted suicide several times in my life, and I've felt suicidal since I was about 14, I think, was the very first time that I thought, I want to die. Not the first time I thought I want to die. The first time I thought I'm going to kill myself. I had feelings pretty much for a long time through my childhood and through especially my adolescence and my teenagers, that I didn't want to live, or why am I living, the confusion about that, and just struggling with my experience. And sorry, yeah, I'm getting distracted by the comments, so already. Yeah, I don't want to say don't comment, but like, it doesn't help to see that when I'm talking about something that's so vulnerable. And like I say, I can comment afterwards, but unless it's like, I don't know, I feel on. Hiya, sorry, my phone started doing all sorts of things there. Right, I'm just going to talk. Please don't comment unless you have to. I don't know how to take them off. I don't really want to see them. Oh, okay. All I'm guessing they're under the, there, yay, okay. Comments, no, right, comment. Anyway, what's that? No. Right, sorry, I don't know enough about the technical stuff, but yeah, please don't do stickers and stuff. I can't deal with that right now when I'm talking about this. Focus. Right, so yes, I was talking about I've had suicidal thoughts for a long time during my childhood. Not suicidal thoughts questioning my life, questioning meaning of my life, the struggle in my life, how to deal with the struggle of my life. And then when I had attempted rape trauma, when my sexual abuse got to a point where it kind of met a head, that really triggered or started the really dark, challenging ideas around that suicidal ideation. But I was probably about 14 when I very first thought, yeah, that's it, I'm done, I'm doing it. And I made my first suicide attempt. Now, it wasn't a very committed attempt. I realised it was going to be really painful. I was trying to cut myself, and it wasn't working. And that experience, I kind of gave up on it, and then that giving up on killing myself just kind of led me into a depression. Like, I couldn't even do that sort of thing. So this idea of suicide, or not being alive, and not having the ability to take my own life, kind of stayed with me for a long time. And my next so it was kind of always there. I had people actually in my life experience, not personally, but on the edges, commit suicide. And that was a subject that came up sometimes. And one that really sticks out right now was that when I was at uni, someone in our class, that I didn't really know, I kind of would recognise her. There was like 100 of us or something in the class. Like, you know, I kind of recognise her, probably knew her name, but wouldn't have chatted to her. And she was like slightly more like a mature student compared to us, and she killed herself. And they kind of gathered everyone together and talked about and told us as a group, and that kind of sparked a conversation amongst friends. And this one just sticks in my mind because it's one of the first conversations I had with like a new group of people outside of my teenage friend group, and they were talking about suicide and how could someone do that and all this. And I just came out with, because I'd lived with these thoughts for a long time at this point, so I was 19, and I just said, well, everyone thinks about suicide at some point or other. And the look, everyone looked at us. One of my friends was like, no, they don't, Terry. And I was like, And that was the end of that conversation in that entire friend group. And it was the first time I realised, like, properly, because I was quite comfortable saying that, you don't talk about suicide. And that was the first message I got as like an adult. You don't talk about that. It's not normal. And, you know, it's not socially acceptable to bring it up, even though we were talking about someone who killed themselves. It was after uni when I started to have, I had more rape trauma, but after uni, I started to have a lot more, pretty much regular suicidal thoughts again, because I went through that experience of uni and I was kind of left alone. Basically, like, everyone left and I was living away from family, and I was trying to like navigate, you know, how do I live in the world? And I felt very alone and isolated. So that kind of slippery slope started. But it wasn't until I was 28, 27, 28. Obviously, I'm not great with dates and timelines and stuff, but it was around that age, 2010, I think it was, that I actually like made a serious suicide attempt to end my own life. Don't even know I'm here. Honestly don't. And like I say, I shared the reasons for that in the post, and that surviving that, I'll tell you something, surviving a suicide attempt is really fucking hard. When you've decided, I do not want to live, and you've taken decisive action to end your own life, and it doesn't fucking work, it is, that's all I can say. It was like, it's been one of the hardest things to kind of manage through my life, is this knowing that I couldn't even kill myself, and that I still had to like live. Like I even caught all sorts of things like, maybe I did die and this is my own version of hell. Like, and we just don't know, do it? That's the reality. We don't really understand consciousness. But I attempted suicide by taking literally every pill in the house, and back then I had quite a lot of them, from, you know, paracetamol, ibuprofen, clodridamol, my antihistamines, just every single, I think I was on antidepressants then as well. I would have been on antidepressants then as well. Every single pill I had in my house, gathered, and a bottle of vodka. There was no way I should have survived that. Like, as far as I was concerned, that's not survivable. I was unconscious for several days and I woke up. And that's kind of what shifted my life. So, like I say, after I'd been through that, there's no going back really. But what I want to talk about, so my recovery from that period as well, it's led me down a healing path, a natural healing path. Like, obviously, after I tried to kill myself with alcohol and pills, I can't be around alcohol and pills. So I had to shift into a natural healing, like recovery line. And the spiritual experience of pretty much dying but not dying, and then being brought back to life with this whole new, like I came back with a different level of consciousness. It's all I can explain. Like, obviously, like something like that, like I say, it shifts a lot in you, like to make that choice and go through with that action, and then having to navigate how to live after that. But I want to talk about, so I'm going to kind of talk about both. This might be a long live, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry, it needs to be discussed. So as I put in the description, the reasons why I got to that point, and I also want to talk about how we get it so wrong, how we talk about it, suicide in society. I was under professional medical care when I attempted suicide. I was on antidepressant drugs that happen to have a side effect that you might just kill yourself. I was desperately seeking help. I was doing everything we as a society say you should do, and none of it is helpful. And the three, like I say, when I kind of try and really think back and reflect, the three main themes that caused me to make that decision were, I didn't feel like I had the support system. So yes, I had friends. I was a popular person. I was working in the media industry, had all these amazing people around us, all these creative people, wonderful friends. I had family that cared about me, on the phone, you know. I had family in London at the time. Then my auntie was still alive, my sister was still, like, people were around me. It wasn't that there was a lack of people around me. It wasn't even as if we didn't chat. It was that I wanted to connect on a deep level and couldn't. Physically couldn't. I had many blocks around talking, but because of the social constructs we created, like you don't talk about certain things, or the way we would get together was never ever set up to actually talk about the hardships of life, which is what I needed. Like going out with your friends for a drink, or going out clubbing, or even going around for dinner, sitting chilling with my sister, visiting my auntie, phoning me mum. It's like there was all these opportunities of people around us to connect with. yet it never felt real to be able to connect with them and say, you know what, I constantly am thinking about killing myself because of my past experiences and because of what you see going on in society and how we frame suicidal people, how we talk about suicide, the options available to suicidal people. It was like I didn't want to burden other people. I didn't want to risk my social connections. I didn't want to bring that into certain friendships, you know. And then the professional help that I was supposed to be getting just wasn't there. Like the counselling sessions I was offered with, you know, a counsellor I didn't even really connect with, and it was only like 1 hour sessions, you know, well, 45 minutes really, and then there was only 6 of them, and then they would stop, and there was no place to make a meaningful, deep connection with anyone to support me through that. And the other reason, like I say, was I had had all this trauma. I had had a life filled with abuse, bullying, victimization, and it was as if I was the only one. I mean, we're talking a few years ago now, 15 years ago. I think people are a lot more open now, especially on social media and stuff. But I felt like I was the only one that ever had negative experiences. Like, had no one else ever like been raped? Had no one else ever been burgled? Had no one else? And even if they were, and even when people knew that those things had happened to us, it was like, yeah, you just get on with life. You just cope. Well, I wasn't fucking coping. I wasn't coping. Oh, well, I was, like I thought I was just carrying on, pumping into work, doing more work, go out partying, drink some more, you know, get stoned. I was carrying on, but all that stuff had still happened. And obviously now when I can reflect back on a deep level, I felt so unsafe. Like I had no sense of safety or protection at all. Like, you know, I burgled and I reported to the police and they did nothing, you know, like literally nothing. And that's just one example, you know what I mean? And my entire life was filled with these experiences where something awful, traumatic, serious would happen, and even when I reported it, even when I told people, nothing happened. Nothing would ever be done about it, and I knew that. So it just generally felt really fucking unsafe. So my mind, especially when I can reflect back now from a place of healing to a place of when I was in that suffering, could not make any sense of how to be or feel safe. And where was I going to get any protection from? I wasn't. I was completely alone in the world. So even though all these people were around us, like, they wouldn't, I knew. They would never, ever, ever do anything to really protect me or keep me safe. And I was alone. So I might have been in a room with all these people, but I knew I could still get sexually assaulted and no one would do anything. I knew, like, you know what I mean? Like, when you have these experiences, you know you're alone, yet there was nowhere I could, like, sense to go to actually learn the skills to survive in this dangerous world. Nowhere. Like, where was I supposed to go? And when I did reach out, like I say, I was actively searching for help. I reached out to like victim support. I remember victim support told me once on the phone, because I was getting really frustrated because I couldn't get an appointment, and they kept saying, oh, there's a waiting list, this, that, and the other. And I remember, like, I think I was on the phone, I was like, what is the point of victim support? And basically they blacklisted me for getting angry on the phone that I couldn't get an appointment. So they basically said, even though I had been a victim and I was reaching out for victim support, that I couldn't get support because I got angry. Like, that is the reality that people are facing. And I bet that still happens today. Like, I know it does. If you don't behave, you're going to get denied services to support you because the person who's there isn't trained and can't deal with keeping themselves safe in that situation. They don't know how to deal with these challenging emotions, and it's a ripple effect. There's a ripple effect like no one does. The person who's getting angry and upset, who's seeking help, you know, they don't know how to keep themselves safe, and the person who's trying to support them often doesn't know how to keep them safe either. So we're all just unsafe people going around, like, you know, pretending to support each other but not actually being able to. So aside from all this trauma I was trying to process that I didn't know how, and dealing with the symptoms of it, and having a support system that wasn't really supporting us, on top of that was actually living this narrative of life, of like work. And bearing in mind, so I was 28, I had been running my own business for 3 years. I had, you know, I'd been working for people for a while, built up some experience, set up my own business. So I was literally alone, out in the world, you know, in my 20s, like, yeah, I'm going to do all this stuff. I'm going to prove to myself and prove to everyone else how brilliant I'll be at running this business. And it's not fucking easy. I think I was expected to pay about £3,000 a month in London. That was the bare minimum cost of living. And that was just for me to live. That wasn't with any profit. That wasn't with any extra money to like feed myself or like, you know, have a holiday or anything like that. It was £3,000 a month for my rent, for my bills, for everything I was expected. Probably more, because I was still like, oh, I wasn't able to like pay accountant as much as I was going to pay an accountant. You know what I mean? All this. I was working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, pretty much. I got up, I worked, went out, partied, got up, worked, went out, partied. You know what I mean? Like, my entire life was just grind. And then, because I was struggling financially, because obviously I had all these trauma symptoms going on and that, and I just, like I say, that sometimes I think I get angry, and then sometimes I just think it's so insane. The council started bullying us for non-payment of business rates. Now, there was this, I'm not going to go into it, but essentially I was already paying council tax on the property I was in, and they wanted me to pay both council tax and business rates, so essentially like a lot of money to them. And they took that, like, I was telling them, well, that's not possible because I'm either paying one or the other, or half and half. But they took that to the point of sending bailiffs and bullies around my house. They made me sell my car to pay off a debt that I didn't even know. They were sending me threatening court letters all the time. I was constantly trying to deal with these people. Phone call after phone call. Obviously, the bills were mounting up. I was getting into debt, paying these 2 bills to the council because they were like, you're going to go to prison. It was horrendous. I'm not even exaggerating. It was horrendous, the level of abuse, harassment and bullying that those people gave to me to get money that I didn't even owe them. And it got proved in the long run that I didn't owe them. And you know what all I got? Not even an apology. Fuck off. But regardless, that relentless, I just thought, there's no point. There's no way. Like, I remember a conversation with one of the guys and just said, look, well, what am I supposed to do? I don't have the money to carry on paying this. What am I supposed to do? He says, make more money. He says, I'm already working 12 hours a day. How am I supposed to make more money? He says, I don't know. That, I just thought there's no point. Even though I kind of was doing a job that I liked, with all that situation, there was literally no point in me living. The future was bleak. I thought, I can't cope with this for another fucking 30, 40, 50, 60 years, however long I live. Right, so all that being said, the point I'm trying to make was, my choice to commit suicide was not one of mental illness. It was one of the most powerful, decisive choices I made ever up until that point. It was me looking at the reality of my life after trying my absolute fucking best, going, there's no way out of this, and I'm going to choose to end it. And you know what? If an animal was suffering at the level I was suffering, that would be fine in society. But because I'm a human, it's seen and considered as a mental illness, as a problem that I would choose not to suffer with the amount of suffering that I chose. And then, like I said, then the hard fucking lesson for me was that when I did make that very decisive, powerful choice, I woke up. Yay! So, when I woke up, I didn't actually tell people that I committed suicide initially. People knew, we avoided the subject. There was like this underlying kind of, like, I'd spoke to my mum, spoke to my sister, and didn't actually use those words, because again, I didn't even know how, and I was so devastated when I woke back up. you've then got this extra problem on top of the problem. So I still already had the problems that I had, but now I had this other problem that I had survived that and I had to adjust. So what happened was I ended up adjusting my entire life. Like I say, that was what took me down. I ended up leaving London where I was living, leaving my business, leaving my boyfriend at the time, leaving all my friends and moving back up north and starting again. And it actually wasn't even my choice. It was something that my mum chose to do. She was just like, coming to get you sort of thing. And then I've had to like live with the ripple effects of that for a long time. So I didn't necessarily, especially straight away, talk about my suicide. Obviously I have talked about it now, and I do talk about it a bit more now, because it's not easy. But actually what I'm able to, or what I have now, is this perspective of someone who has gone through that process of recovery after suicide, because it doesn't go away. The suicidal thoughts don't go away, your problems don't go away. You've just got to adapt to life afterwards. And again, from what I've seen with people who've either had suicide attempts or who have been sectioned because of suicide attempts, who have also survived suicide, there is like no fucking support. It's just like, oh well, carry on. Like you already admitted that it was too much and you gave up, and yet now you're surviving and there's just nothing. You've just got to carry on. I mean, like some people might say, well, this is what's made me now, so as you're saying, brave, strong, all the rest of it, mebs. Maybe it is, but we can do better. And the way we talk about suicide, what I've realised is the way we talk about suicide as a society, the way we handle it, is one, as a problem, which is a problem, and two, we actually cater to soothing the survivors, not the people that are actually suffering with the suicidal thoughts or who have attempted suicide, their friends and family. Like us as a society, because we cannot admit we are all partially to blame for the suicidal problem in society, we create systems that create that. It's the systems, the societal structure and the systems that we've created and that we perpetuate that cause suicidal ideation, that cause people to actually want to kill themselves and would rather die than live amongst us. Like, I think that is just such a wound for people that they can't admit it. And if somebody loses somebody to suicide that they really love, like a family member or something, we want to soothe that pain. So rather than admit, well, actually, yeah, your child or your partner, and I'm not saying this is not a really hard, horrific thing to have to live with, they were literally, they chose to kill themselves than phone you. You were not supporting them in the way they needed to in order to feel like they wanted to live. Why? We're so afraid of presenting that reality that instead what we do is blame suicide victims. We blame people for taking their own life. We say they're a problem. They have a mental health problem. You're broken. You need fixed. You've got a problem. Well, I'm telling you, I didn't have a problem. I did not have a problem. I didn't have a mental health problem. All the mental stress I was under was imposed on me by the systems, was reinforced by the lack of support, and was caused by the trauma experiences that I had experienced again and again and again and again. Like, my mind, I wasn't mentally ill. I was just acting in exactly the way that my body has evolved to respond. I was trying to protect myself constantly all the time, trying to find a way to safety, and there wasn't one. And the problem of suicide is a systemic one. But we put it on the individual. So then the problem with, and we do that, like I say, to soothe the people who are left behind, who've lost somebody to suicide. But the problem with that is we're never solving the actual problem. We're never actually solving the problem. We're just creating more people who would rather kill themselves than get help or find support, or where do they find support, or give them the support, create the structures that support what they need. And I've lost people to suicide, not like I say, not really close people, but friends, like people who I was connected with. And it is horrible. It is horrible. People who's actually in like conversation with them, and you just think, I can't believe it. I was just speaking to them like days before they killed themselves, and I didn't see it. Even as a suicide survivor, I didn't fucking see it. I wasn't able to offer them that space they needed to think, I can survive knowing that this person has a connection to us. And it runs really deep. It's a really, really, really deep issue. I know it is, and it's complex. I know it is. But it's not helped by the label of calling suicidal people mentally ill. Especially when your options are like telling a friend or family member, someone who you're close to, because they want to fix you. They want you to feel better. But actually you need space to really dive into that pain and find real proper solutions. And that's very often not provided for us. We've forgotten the art hosting space for pain, and that's what suicide recovery needs to be. It's hosting space for pain, to address the pain in a safe, structured, sensible way. Reaching out on a professional level, like you can get sectioned, like you can get locked up in a mental institute for telling people that you have suicidal thoughts or you're thinking of acting out suicide. Like the societal response is to lock us up. It's to lock you up. Nobody wants to be locked up. Like, that's why we use prison as such a punishment. Nobody wants that. People don't want that. You don't want that. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, ask for help, but we might just lock you up into a mental institute with all sorts of people who are like, well, I don't even know if I believe in mental illness in that way, but you know what I mean? Lots of people with serious mental health problems, and we're going to make you take pills to balance you out, in other words, so we don't have to actually address this pain. We're going to make you take pills to the point where you admit, I'm not going to kill myself, and then we'll let you go. Like, I mean, I can't speak for other countries, but that is pretty much the system in the UK. There's emergency responses, which is either like Samaritans or, you know, going to the hospital. They'll calm you down, and that's literally all they do. Is like putting on a plaster. If you're like in suicidal crisis and you phone one of these people, they'll literally put a plaster over you. They'll use specifically trained words to calm you down. So in that moment, you get calmed down, but then do absolutely fuck all, nothing to help you address the problems and got you to that point where you decided you want to kill yourself. It's like a perpetuating system. And until we can really, really start to become brave enough as a society to address the underlying problems, which is this real lack of connection with one another, this real lack of support, and the imposition of cruelty upon each other. Like, it is cruel to force someone to have to work to live, to put a roof over their head. It is cruel to force someone to have to admit that they're broken before we'll offer them care. It is cruel to allow systems that, I mean, I haven't even touched on like the constant like bullying and abuse. I mean, I talked about the bullying and stuff from the council, but we send kids to school and they go to school to get bullied. We send people to work, and at work they get bullied by their bosses. And, you know, we try to put policy into place to protect people from that, but it doesn't, you know, it doesn't. It takes a community to protect people from that. It takes every single one of us being brave enough to stand up to every single act of bullying that we see to anyone we care about ever, to create a safe society for us to live amongst. And especially for people who have already been victimised and are experiencing serious trauma that's leading them to distress, our intolerance of their emotional response, their triggers, their inability to cope, and they're not providing any sort of real support. Like, this is really deep, important stuff. And yeah, I just felt like I wanted to address it today on World Suicide Prevention Day. Like, well, okay, wake up world. If we're going to prevent suicide, one, you need to meet people's needs. That's a need. Basic needs for food, shelter, energy. Beyond that, our needs for nurture and protection. Those needs, fundamental needs, need to be met across the world, regardless, for every single human that is alive. If we really want to prevent suicide. And then we need to be brave enough as individuals to hold space for each other in pain, create space for each other in pain. You know, if like you've only got friendships that like I had, and they were good friends, they were good people, you know, I loved them deeply. I think they loved me deeply. Like, but if we never create space to actually sit down and be like, we need to talk about our pain, and not just to bitch about it and moan about it, but to work through it together. To go, right, well, this has caused you pain. How are we going to solve that problem together? Together. Not just like, oh, well, let's bitch about it for, you know, an hour or two and get drunk or whatever, maybe, or soothe each other, and then go home to our separate houses and let them solve their problem themselves. Like, obviously, I advocate for self-empowerment, and yes, we all need to solve our own problems, right? Nobody else can solve our problems for us. I'm not saying that. But we can't live in a society alone. It's a co-creative environment that we've created. So if somebody has a problem, and like your friend has a problem, like be practical and talk through it, not fixing it. Like you see, I mean, I'm maybe trying to solve the problem of suicide all by myself and one live, but sit in that pain. What can the pain tell us? How can we solve this problem? And if it is a systemic problem, we need to address it. And we're not going to address it as long as we carry on with this idea that actually it's okay for people to be struggling. It's okay for some people to be struggling. It's okay for some people to be in pain. It's okay for some people to be abused. It's okay for some people to be without food, shelter, energy, support, protection. Because those are our fundamental needs, and we are way, way, way advanced enough to be able to provide them freely. And I don't understand ever why we won't allow that. And we can't see the long-term benefit of that for everyone. Must be every parent's worst nightmare to think, like, I can completely empathise. Like, my mother would have been devastated if I killed herself, and then to have to face that reality that I would rather die than be alive in the situation that was created. That must be devastating for any parent. And I don't understand how, on a societal level, we can't create the systems possible to prevent that from ever happening. Not by just brushing over the issue, but by really, really looking at it and going, you know what, enough's enough. I'm not going to send my child to school to be bullied and forced to comply with something that I know from my adult experience isn't helpful. To indoctrinate them into a system where they're always going to be expected to struggle before their needs are met. And that's where we get really deep, isn't it? And spiritual about all this. Okay, that was quite intense, I think. I hope my message has come across. Like, this is not supposed to be a live about blaming anybody. It's not supposed to be a live about trying to, like I say, fix this on a surface level. I just really wanted to use my experience to have, or perhaps initiate, a conversation about how we address suicide. So so I haven't talked about this. This is important. If somebody reaches out to you and they're actually suicidal, right, there is some mistakes people make very often. And I'm going to tell you a couple. Just in case, because obviously if people are watching, people might want to listen. Well, what do I do if my friend says they're suicidal? Don't treat them as a problem. Don't try to fix them for a start, right? So, like, saying you need to get help, as in then diverting them to someone else, to other professional, again, it's not going to help. If you really, really care about the person who has said, I'm feeling suicidal, I'm having suicidal thoughts, sit with them and dive into that pain. Okay, I'm here. I'm ready. This is going to hurt both of us because I actually really love you and care about you. And it pains me to hear that you're having these suicidal thoughts, but I'm going to do and hear and witness whatever you need me to do, hear and witness, to help you to express this pain. One of the major things that I've had when I got to a point of healing where I was suicidal and reaching out was I'm going to laugh, and I mean no disrespect to the people who were actually trying to support us, but some of the things people said to me, right, when I said I'm suicidal: what about your cats? What? You fucking serious? I'm telling you, I want to kill myself, and you go, what about your cats? I mean, I love my cats. Don't get me wrong. I love my cats. But like, they're cats. I'm sure they'd miss us, but they would go off and chase some mice and, you know, they'd cope. They're cats. My friends and family would hopefully rehome them. Like, on the list of my problems going on, like, what's going to happen with my cats? It's not something you want to chuck at somebody when they're thinking about suicide. Another one was, which I was actually really shocked about. Just to be fair, I mean, it did help because it made me I was so surprised that this person said this to us. She says, well, you know what? I believe you can call down the Starseed aliens who will come and rescue you on a spaceship and take you back to the Pleiades, I guess, because you're a Starseed soul. I mean, obviously, you might get from that she was on a spiritual path and was tapping into ideas of being Starseed soul who had connections to aliens in the Pleiades, but genuinely said to us, well, why don't I call down a spaceship and get them to come and rescue us and take us away? Yep. Good friend said that to us. I was like, really? You think I can do that? So rather than kill myself, just call out to these alien gods who will come and rescue me from my life. You know, some of these things that we see, like, so just not to fix that, but if somebody says they're suicidal, don't impose your religious or spiritual beliefs onto them, as in, like, they can just fix it with some magical spirituality. It's not how it works. It's not. Trust me, someone who's suicidal has considered all that. They've thought about death a lot. They've thought about death a lot. And but genuine ways to help somebody, or what I would have responded to had I, you know, said to one of those friends feeling suicidal, I'm really thinking about killing myself. If they just said, like I say, even if they couldn't hold the space for the pain, just to say, well, you know what? If you died, I'd really care, I'd really miss you, and I would really rather that you were alive. Even that would have been more reassuring than, what about your cats, or go off with some aliens, you know. It's non-avoidance of it. I think that's what my heart really wants to say. Like, if somebody reaches out to you with suicidal thoughts or suicidal intentions, or has survived suicide, don't avoid it. Look at it directly in the eye. All right, we need to address this pain. We need to address this pain. And if you can't, if you really, as a person, as a friend, can't, just be honest and just say that. You don't just say, do you know what, actually, this would cause me so much pain. I'm not comfortable, evolved, mature enough to be able to feel that pain with you. But know that I care. And I can sit. I can't feel the pain, but I can sit and acknowledge what you've said. Do you know what I mean? Just don't avoid it. The more we avoid it, the more we try to avoid that pain with people, the more we perpetuate that there's something wrong with it, and that person is a problem. So, all that being said, that's a really long live. I'm going to post another post after this, a written post that I've done, and I'm going to share the link of the course I've created, and I will put a link, I guess, on this for the course I've created. And it's just my way of giving back. I'm not saying it's a right or it's an answer or anything at all like that, but I just really felt that my experience might support somebody else who is struggling with that and who's recovering, and I just wanted to put that out in the world, and I wanted to do it today on World Suicide Prevention. Life today is good, Jamie. I'm really well. I've said this a few times on lives as well, when I am able to be in a place where I can so comfortably talk about this, I'm well. My life has been very well for a while now, and I am very comfortable holding space for these conversations and addressing the realities that we have to face. I'm really comfortable with that. Although this has been quite a heavy, long live. And I'm going to finish up what I need to do, publish the stuff, and then probably do something really light and lovely. Got to wash the dishes, cuddle my dog, and do some nice things for the rest of the day. It's a shame it's raining outside, but yep, thank you for asking, Jamie. I'm going to get off. Thank you for watching. If you think this video would help somebody who is struggling with suicide, feel free to share it, and look out for the course again. And yeah, I'm done. Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you. I'll not see you tomorrow, because tomorrow is my connection day, so it's a day complete to myself, so I'll not be live on Facebook, but I'll be back Monday with my commitment to show up every day, apart from Sundays, and do my lives. So take care. See you later.